Hey guys, welcome back. Mr. Will here. It's Friday, May 1st. Can you believe it? 2020. This is a video lesson for the group. Every day I'm calculating. And before we get into our lesson today, a couple of housekeeping announcements. Number one, if you have not checked in with me this week, please do so. It's so nice to see your faces. Answer any questions you have. At the very least, just say hi so we can stay connected. It's much appreciated, and it is part of your participation grade. Number two, you have a problem of the week that's due at the end of the day today. It's about the mean and median of certain data that has been provided for you. You have to find the median. And number three, you do have IXL lessons that are due at the end of the day as well today. So you have a check-in every week, IXL lessons, and problem of the week. Please make sure, that you are doing all of those. So on top of that, we also have our daily lessons and assignments. So let's get into it. Yesterday, we were talking about systems of equations and using the substitution method or strategy to solve these. Now, we are still working with systems of equations, but we are going to be using a new strategy. It's called elimination. I am the eliminator. No, actually, sorry, that was the terminator. What we're going to do is we're going to try to eliminate one of these variables. So we're going to try to get rid of the x or the y. Now, the way that you do this is by finding trying to manipulate these equations so that you have the opposite coefficient, which just means a positive and a negative of the same variable. So let's kind of work through these steps together, and then I'd like you to practice some on your own. So it says solve this system of equations. I have negative x minus 2y equals 4. The second equation I have is 3y equals negative 5/10 x plus 2. Now, the very first thing that I want to do is I want to try to rewrite my equation here so they're both in the same order. Because what I'm trying to do is I'm going to try to line up my variables to see if I can make one a positive and one a negative and cancel them out or eliminate them. So down here, I have 3y equals negative 5/10 x plus 2. I'm going to try to get my equation up here to be written the same way. So what I'm going to do, let's show you my steps, is I have my 2y here on this side of the equal sign. I'm going to move my x over to this side, okay? Because on my second equation, my x is on the right-hand side. So if I'm trying to get my x from here to this side, what do you think I'm going to do? If you said add, you would be correct. Okay, so I'm going to add my x here. And what I'm left with is still 2y, but I'm going to add x here and add x here. And what it does is negative x plus x, it's going to cancel itself out. But then on this side, I'm left with x plus 4. So I'm left with negative 2y equals x plus 4. And look at that. It's in the same structure or order that this equation is now. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to, my first step, rewrite your equation so that they're both equations and the systems of equations are written in the same order. Okay, now the second thing that I'm going to do is I'm looking at this equation and I'm trying to find or make my variables, one negative and one positive, so that I can eliminate them. Okay, because if I have a positive and a negative, it equals 0. So I'm looking at this and I'm thinking, what can I do to make this a negative x and this a positive x? Well, if this is a negative half, how can I make this a negative whole? Because if I made this a negative whole, I'd be left with negative 1, right? Because negative 1x would just be negative x, and then that would cancel itself. I got it. If I multiply this whole equation by 2, if I multiply this whole equation by 2, what that will do is that will make this 0.5, negative 0.5, negative 1. And when that happens, I can cancel out the x. Okay? So if I multiply this whole equation by 2, doing the distributive property of multiplication, 3 times 2 would give me 6y equals, if I have negative 0.5 times 2, that would give me negative 1. Or in this case, we wouldn't write it negative 1x. What would we do? We would just write it as, that's right, we would just write it as negative 1. So I'm just going to write that as negative 1 plus 2 times 2 would give 4. Okay? Now, the reason I'm able to do that is because if I multiply this 2 by both sides of my equal sign, my equation stays equivalent. Now, I have different values, but the equation stays equivalent. So now I have 6y equals negative x plus 4. And my original equation, which was part of the system, was negative 2y equals x plus 4. Now, what I can do here is I can now look at this equation and say, I have a x and negative x. And when I have an x and negative x, what happens is when they're a system of equations, they cancel each other out. Okay? And now what we're going to do is we're going to combine the terms. 4 plus 4, kind of like a big addition problem, is 8. And negative 2y plus 6y gives me 4y. So I'm left with 4y equals 8. Now, I want to get the answer for y, so I'm going to divide both sides using the inverse operation. And 4 divided by 4 cancels each other out. I'm left with just y. And 8 divided by 4 is, that's right, 2. Y equals 2. So now what I can do is I can come back up here and I can plug in y for 2. So I'm going to rewrite this sentence that I've written all over. Negative x minus 2 times 2, because that's the value of y that we figured out from down here, equals 4. So now I'm taking the value that I already know, although that looks terrible, the value that I already know, and I'm going to plug it into my equation. And now I can solve for the value of x. Okay, so I have 2 times 2, that would give me 4. And I'm left with negative x minus 4 equals 4. And if I want to get my x by itself, because I'm subtracting 4, what am I going to do? That's right, I'm going to add 4 to each side of my equation. Oh my goodness, I wrote 8. No, that would be 4. I'm adding 4. 4 plus 4 would give me 8. I'm a step ahead of myself. And that would leave me with, that's right, 8 on this side. And I'm left with negative x on this side. Now, we don't leave this as negative x. So you could do one of two things. You can divide by negative 1, or you could just know that you don't have a negative, and what you do is you flip it over here and make your constant term a negative. But we're going to divide by negative x because you want to get rid of that 1. Okay, so negative 1 divided by negative 1 equals x equals negative 8. And there you go, ladies and gentlemen. We have just solved a system of equations using the elimination method. Now, this is pretty intense stuff. I mean, this is big league. And you guys are doing a nice job with it from the work that I see you guys turning in. Please, 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 when you are working through these problems, I need to see this. I need to see your work. You cannot just write y equals 2, x equals -8. I will have no way of knowing how you solved that. So please take your time, show your work, be neat. I want to see you taking these through step by step to show your understanding. Again, I am here wanting to help you answer any questions that you have. Please do not hesitate to reach out to me. Work hard, ask questions, and I'll see you on Monday. Have a great weekend.